this article from scmp.com about the
Mm-hmm.
coronavirus and the Chinese Lunar New Year, which is
Yeah.
the huge festival in China. It's basically like it's for China what
Christmas.
Christmas is for Canada. It's the time when people go on a break, they go visit their family, and that might involve, for them, it might involve traveling from a big city that they live in, probably to a smaller town, maybe across the country or maybe nearby. So there's usually a ton of travel, a
Mhm.
ton of people moving around. We were talking about this last week, and we said that it looks like it looks like somewhat fewer people will travel this year, and the travel might be more spread out. Now,
Yes.
the news that I'm seeing this week makes it seem like it's even going to be a little bit smaller than we thought last week. I don't know. But this article here, one of the things that it talked about was a poll that they did, a poll of about 15,000 people. And it said that
Mm-hmm.
about a third of them said that they would just be traveling as usual. About a third of them said they wouldn't be traveling. And a third was still undecided.
Yeah.
And then there are a couple cities that have had outbreaks, and they might have, those cities, and also every city in China and every province will have its own regulations. It's not just like the central government is setting the regulations for everything. So a person that is traveling to, uh, one city, they might just have barely any restrictions to travel there and travel back. Whereas somebody else, they might have to go into quarantine when they enter a certain area, or they might have to end up going into quarantine when they end up going back home.
I think one big thing impact on the spring traveling is recently a few city has been locked down and are doing the COVID-19 test all over the city. A few cases has been spread out in Liaoning and Hebei. That I think is a sign that why people is traveling less. I think although China has did a great job to contain the COVID-19, but nearly the end of the year, the huge traveling in China could be another symbol that the COVID-19 is going to spread out
Mm-hmm.
within the country. So that is why in this article, I think the author is saying that Chinese government is urging people to stay at home if necessary.
Uh,
Probably not traveling if you can. Probably just stay at home. It's safer.
sure, but not everybody from the Chinese government is saying the same thing. It's not like all these governments are saying just stay at home. Like this
Mhm,
epidemiologist here cited in this article, he said
mhm.
that there's no need to restrict travel within China. But then we have other people saying other things, and then some local governments, I think, have even been giving away some kind of subsidies or rewards to people to try to get them to stay home.
Yes, that subsidies is in south part of China. I think one city I remember is Ningbo. That's very close to Nanjing as well. So they are actually trying to promote asking the citizens to stay at the city rather than allowing them to go home. On the other hand, you just mentioned the questions that some government is promoting, says, okay, everything's safe, we're good to traveling, but some scientists maybe say, okay, there might be a threat or other thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just from different point of view. From
Okay.
government, they probably try not to let the COVID-19 going out from one city to another because you never know who is carrying the COVID-19.
Right.
But from the scientists, they believe, okay, now we have vaccines and probably we don't really have that many cases. So there is no big deal for traveling as long as everyone wear masks and
Yeah.
then probably keeping the social distance. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Okay. I saw some other marketing campaigns that I came across, like marketing from governments in China. And one of the things that one of them said was uh, they were trying to persuade people not to go back to their hometowns, right? And they said that you better not travel back because if you do, your family's just going to pressure you to get married anyways.
Ha, that is correct. I heard that from my mother. So yeah.
Yeah, so they use some different angles to try to persuade people. I think it's kind of interesting. But another thing that's interesting here is that it seems like the messaging coming from China's, say, like health specialists and disease specialists is that it's more safe,
Mhm.
whereas the messages coming from politicians or official governments are the ones that are saying that you should actually be more careful. Whereas here it's the opposite. You know, here the health experts are always telling people to be safe, and then the governments, depending on which government and where you are, will take different approaches to things.
That's interesting. Yeah, that reminds me of like some countries, like United States, for example, they've been doing the opposite way with China.
Mm-hmm.